Your phone buzzes at 6 in the morning, just like it has every single day for the last 4 years. In the dark, your hand reaches out and brushes against an unopened eviction letter you have been avoiding for days. You already know the contents by heart. 3 days remain before you lose this apartment, and your checking account holds exactly $41. You push yourself upright, wincing as your back protests against the thin mattress on the floor. Down the hallway, your roommate is shouting into the phone at someone about overdue rent, and you press your fingers against your eyes, trying to recall the last time anything in your life felt like a victory. Then the phone vibrates again, but this time it isn't the alarm. It's an email. The subject line reads, "Wire transfer confirmation." Your stomach twists before you even finish reading the number. You open it with trembling fingers, convinced this has to be a scam, some cruel prank meant to twist the knife deeper. But the sender is unmistakably your bank. The figure staring back at you reads $240 million. It's the payout from a lawsuit you filed 2 years earlier against a corporation that stole your patent, a case you had long since written off as dead. Even your own lawyer had told you to drop it and move on. Nobody walks away from $240 million. Your hands shake so violently the phone slips from your grip and lands face up on the floor, and you find yourself staring at the water-damaged ceiling, at a stain shaped vaguely like a country you've never set foot in, realizing that your entire existence just shifted in the span of one notification. You tell no one. Not yet. You get dressed and go to work, clocking in at the warehouse as if nothing had happened, terrified that speaking the truth aloud might somehow undo it. You spend 6 hours hauling boxes with this enormous secret lodged in your chest like a stone. Every supervisor who snaps at you, every rude comment from a coworker, you swallow it in silence because you alone know something none of them do. When you finally get home, the funds have already settled into your account. Sleep doesn't come that night. You sit at your kitchen table, laptop glowing, refreshing your balance every few minutes, as though it might evaporate if you look away too long. The first person you call isn't your old attorney, but a brand new one, a specialist in wealth protection. Her name is Elena Vasquez, and she doesn't so much as blink when you tell her the amount. She delivers one line that will echo through the rest of your life. From now on, everyone you encounter wants something from you, and most will hide it well. You brush off her warning as exaggeration. You are completely mistaken. Within 7 days, the news has spread, though you can't trace exactly how. Maybe a bank employee let it slip. Maybe your former lawyer mentioned it in passing. Maybe it was simply unavoidable. Unknown numbers start flooding your phone. Distant relatives you haven't heard from in over a decade suddenly remember your birthday and shower you with warmth. Your childhood friend Marcus phones in tears, telling you how proud he is, then 20 minutes later asks for $60,000 to fund a business idea he hasn't even started. You agree. You don't yet realize that this first yes plants an expectation that will haunt you for years. The apartment building that was about to evict you sends its manager to your door in person, apologizing profusely, offering to cancel the notice, dangling a discounted penthouse suite. The same landlord who ignored 3 separate maintenance calls last winter doctor now desperately wants you to stay. You laugh in disbelief and move out regardless. You purchase your first vehicle outright, a plain black sedan, nothing showy, because Elena cautioned you that flaunting wealth invites the wrong kind of attention before you've learned the rules of this unfamiliar world. Wearing the same worn jacket you always wear, you walk into the dealership and the salesman doesn't even glance up. 15 minutes later, once the wire transfer confirms your identity, that same salesman is summoning his manager, offering champagne, dangling keys to 3 additional cars on the lot, suddenly calling you sir in a completely different tone than moments before. You start noticing how quickly people's attitudes flip. It happens everywhere. The first upscale restaurant you enter, the hostess nearly turns you away for lacking a reservation until she spots the card in your hand. Until the manager clocks your account tier and a table materializes that wasn't there a minute ago. A complimentary bottle of wine appears, unasked for. This level of attention was never extended to you when you were invisible. It should feel wonderful. Instead, it feels unsettling, like walking on ice that hasn't fully hardened. Elena arranges your first sit-down with a wealth advisor named Griffin Cole, who explains across a polished mahogany table that you now belong to an entirely different financial category of people. He walks you through the threshold that separates those who labor for money from those whose money labors for them. He introduces concepts you never needed to know before: tax shelters, trust structures, offshore accounts. One statement lingers with you long after the meeting ends. With $240 million properly invested, a single year could generate more passive income than 4 decades of hard labor ever would have earned you. 3 weeks into this new life, you're invited to your first private gathering, an invitation routed through Griffin, a room full of people whose names you've only seen in news headlines. You wear a suit that costs more than your former monthly rent. Chandeliers illuminate a space filled with people casually discussing companies they control, boards they sit on, deals spanning countries you've never visited. A silver-haired man in his 60s approaches and introduces himself as Julian Reyes. He skips the small talk and asks directly what your number is. You hesitate, and he smiles knowingly, as if your hesitation alone reveals your inexperience. Everyone in this room can spot a newcomer within 5 minutes. He tells you plainly that the real question isn't how much you have, but whether you know how to hold on to it. That line settles into your chest like a quiet threat. Julian extends an invitation to an unnamed private network, one you won't find through any search engine, a group that convenes quarterly to discuss investment opportunities closed off from the public. He mentions the entry requirement sits at $100 million in liquid assets, and that most who reach that milestone fail to keep it intact within 5 years. When you ask why, he explains that unchecked wealth attracts predators, not the kind who lurk in alleys, but ones in tailored suits who smile just like the people in this very room. You begin to grasp that money isn't an ending point. It's an entirely new contest with rules you have yet to learn. 6 months into this transformation, cracks form within your family. Your sister cuts off contact after you refuse to hand her husband $400,000 for a restaurant venture Griffin had flagged as a near-certain failure. She accuses you of turning cold, of letting money change you. You want to explain that refusing bad investments isn't cruelty, it's self-preservation. But she's already ended the call. You begin mentally tracking who contacts you out of genuine affection versus who calls because they need something. That mental tally grows heavier by the month. A woman named Priya enters your orbit around this period, introduced by Julian at a charity gala. She heads a nonprofit foundation and possesses a sharp intellect. Remarkably, she doesn't bring up your net worth even once through your first 3 conversations, which strikes you as unusual enough to be suspicious, then genuine enough to be real. You begin dating. Elena insists you address a prenuptial agreement early, well before any proposal, having witnessed too many clients lose half their fortune in relationships that started sincerely and ended in litigation. You despise that this conversation is now mandatory in your life, having to safeguard yourself from someone you're falling for. You have the conversation anyway. Priya accepts without hesitation, and that response tells you more about her character than any romantic gesture ever could. A year has now passed, and your fortune has grown rather than shrunk because you heeded Griffin's guidance, diversified wisely, and declined far more offers than you accepted. You now hold board seats at 2 companies you backed early on. In meetings, your input can silence an entire room, not because you're the most knowledgeable person there, but because your signature guarantees the funding. You observe how differently people treat you now, and it extends beyond waitstaff and car salesmen. A senator's staffer requests a meeting regarding legislation relevant to your industry. A journalist who once ignored your emails now pursues an exclusive interview. The university that once denied your request for a tuition extension years ago now wants to name a building after you in exchange for a donation. You find yourself laughing at that offer far longer than expected. After your 2nd year, Julian welcomes you into a deeper circle he calls the inner table, roughly 20 individuals worldwide who shift capital across borders, industries, and crises in ways that never surface in the news. He tells you the requirement here isn't simply wealth, but discretion. The capacity to influence thousands of lives without your name ever being attached to the results. Your first real test arrives quickly. A struggling factory town with 4,000 jobs hanging in the balance. A plant your consortium could either rescue through investment or abandon for a quicker profit elsewhere. The numbers favor letting it fail. The human toll doesn't. Alone in your office at 2 in the morning, staring at the decision before you, you think back to the eviction notice you never opened, still tucked away in a box from your old apartment, a relic of the life you almost lived. You choose to save the jobs, sacrificing $11 million in projected returns. Julian tells you this choice will either cement your legend within this circle or mark you as sentimental, and he won't reveal which for years to come. By your 3rd year, you finally understand something Griffin told you on your very first day, something you couldn't fully grasp until you lived it. Wealth doesn't transform who you are. It exposes who you were always capable of becoming, for better or worse, because it strips away every excuse that once separated your principles from your actions. The world now treats you like nobility. Doors swing open before you arrive. Your name is remembered before you even speak it. Jokes that once fell flat now draw laughter. But you've learned to see past most of it, to distinguish genuine warmth from calculated strategy, real loyalty from mere access. Your sister calls again on your daughter's first birthday, the family's first grandchild. This time she asks for nothing. She simply cries and tells you she's missed you. You still don't know whether this is authentic or another entry in the mental ledger you keep. But for the first time in years, you choose to believe it anyway, because some gambles are worth taking, even at this level of the game. That night, you stand at your office window, gazing out over a city that once paid you no attention whatsoever. You think back to the young man who spent 6 hours moving boxes with a secret buried in his chest, terrified that saying it aloud might make it vanish. It never vanished. Instead, it multiplied into something far heavier than money, something closer to responsibility, something that reshaped every relationship you've ever known and exposed every person's true motives, whether you wanted that clarity or not. You reach the summit of a world most people only dream about. So here's the only question worth asking now. If the world suddenly began treating you like royalty tomorrow, would you actually know which people in your life would remain exactly the same?